Hello and welcome to Yoga Truth. This is season 1, episode 5, and I am Bethany Vaughn, your host. I am here with Lydia Clevenger, Elaine Mayo, Dimelina Mora, and Victoria Talichko. Say hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. And tonight we are talking about thinking traps and breaking unhealthy habits and patterns. So we're going to dive right into this really tumultuous subject matter and see where it takes us. So one thing I want to mention is that everyone who is here is a yoga teacher, and we're going to give you the yogic perspective on how we deal with breaking unhealthy habits and patterns. And so let's get started. I'm going to pose this question to everyone. What was your view of healthy before you practiced yoga?
Achieve, 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 achieve. Did I stick that pose? Did it look good? Are my legs straight and is my face, is my nose touching my shins and forward fold? Doesn't matter if it feels good. Or is my face touching my shins and forward fold and are my legs straight? Instead of achieving the pose, I wasn't in the pose, or maybe the pose wasn't in me. It just needed to look that way.
You know what's so funny, Elaine? So what I think is interesting is when I say before you practiced yoga, and yet that is before you practiced yoga. So you're on your mat, you're doing yoga, but you're not practicing yoga. There's a distinct difference. So I just wanted to point that out, that many people can come and get on their mat, but are they actually practicing? Or do they have this different perspective of, I'm trying to achieve something?
I don't even know if I was completely on my mat. It was, it's a funny, I think of Hanuman, one of my favorite divine monkey, where his legs were long and he'd leap from here to there. Well, I was leaping on everybody else's mat. Like I was not on my mat. I was on Victoria's mat because she did the pose better. Or I was on Bethany's mat because she was the instructor. Is my mat the same as their mat? You're right. I may have been in the studio, but I was far from being a yogi.
I think a lot of people. Okay, I'm gonna talk for myself. Coming to yoga mat was another way to numb myself, to dive into something, set a goal, and then, like Elaine said, achieve. But it wasn't even achieving. It was just continuing numbing myself and pushing the stuff that I needed to deal with somewhere deeper, and being busy with something, and extremely busy, and overkilling it, like, working really hard, not thinking about. So you can think about nothing. So you numb. You don't feel anything. You don't think. You're just in the process, and you don't even know what you're doing. So that was and very. So for me, it was also achievement, numbing, running from something. Because before I came to yoga, I was an athlete. I was a runner. So I would run, like long distances every day. Then I couldn't. So I found yoga. And, sarcastically, yoga is supposed to, kind of calm you down and make a connection mind-body. But it was just another way for me to kind of exhaust myself. So it was that, and also it was a struggle. So healthy for me meant trying to catch up with something that I would never be able to catch up with. There's always something, hanging in front of you, and you're running, but you can never get it. You can never catch it. You can never be that what you think you should be. You never become that.
So this negative connotation went along with healthy. Like that's something that maybe other people achieve.
my image of healthy. Yeah, my image of healthy, something I made up based on, programming and societal standards and all that. So that was my kind of, picture or image of healthy, something that I should be. And it's more, of course, external. It's more an image, like I said, never how I feel, never what's going on in me, and never I have everything already. No, always something external, physical, outlook, something that everybody has or a lot of people have. I don't. So I have to run from myself somewhere outside and get this and kind of find this, catch it.
But you wouldn't. It
Never.
In your mind, you're thinking this will never actually.
Never. There will be another goal. There will be another person to kind of, oh, I want this. I want to be like her, like him.
They're healthy. She's healthier.
Yeah.
That relationship's better. All like that. Interesting. Like, this outside concept.
For me, it was similar to Victoria, actually. It was very much the idea of health was I took notes and I wrote down like a very check mark type of thing of like, well, my weight looks good. My anxiety is in check. I'm not depressed, like mentally, like the type of very like clinical type of health. But what yoga has taught me is that not to say none of that matters if you don't feel the peace and the calm on the inside, but if you feel that peace and that calm, it's okay if you are feeling sick on the outside, right? Because of the peace inside. And that has helped me get through so many other, physical, mental, emotional things that like, I guess it just brings me back to like what is really important. And that not to say that being checkmark healthy, it's great to, keep your cholesterol in check. It's great to not be suffering from depression and all these things. But the real driving force is like having a sense of like calm and peace and a sense of self.
Regardless of what's going on, because sometimes you do get sick and sometimes things don't go well. And sometimes we have to deal with things that we wish weren't that way. But, yogically, you learn how to accept reality. So you thought about it from that perspective clinically. And I think a lot of people think about health in a clinical way. We've been kind of taught that societally. Your blood pressure is supposed to be this. Your eyes, how do they look? And do you have, dark circles? And we have all these little things that we can look.
BMI, the body index, that it's like all those kind of things that you kind of check.
Yeah. Right. And then, so let's say you check off all of those boxes, but then you're like, I'm really not doing so hot. And then you almost melt.
Kind of an example that I can provide is I had a doctor's appointment a couple of weeks ago, actually like 2 weeks ago, and something that was supposed to resolve has not been resolved. So they have to do another, not biopsy, but they need to take another look. And I think the old me would have like dug into Google, not freaked out, but maybe found the worst case scenario. And now I'm just like, it's going to be what it's going to be. There is a spectrum of things that it could be, and it is what it is. I can't control it. Just let it be how it's going to be.
Definitely. I mean, it was the same thing for we're women, and we have bodies, and men sometimes go through the same thing, unfortunately. But when I found a lump in my breast, and I went to the doctor, and their initial reaction was, yeah, there's something there. And so there's that sense of, we're going to take this seriously, but then with their years of experience, they're like, well, if it's smooth and it's not like rough and misshapen, then it's not, they just have different things that they've seen, and they'll go down those paths, but it doesn't make it any less terrifying. Which brings me to, kind of what I thought healthy was before I got into yoga was happy. If you are healthy, you're happy. You're smiling all the time. You're laughing. Like nothing gets you down. Something doesn't go your way. Guess what? You just laugh right through it. Like you're just happy. And and it was, thinking back on it now that I have an understanding of just how powerful contentment is, I think about how almost psychotic it is to assume that you have to be happy. Um, the same way that it's we're human. We experience so many different things, and just as you said, as we started the discussion, things ebb and flow, and we have to move with it in a way that's true to us. Um, and I think the misconception from commercials and television, saying what the perfect family unit looks like, what the perfect woman looks like, what the perfect partner looks like, and there's no such thing as perfect. It's thinking that you had to be happy even in the midst of so much trauma, so much fear, thinking that, okay, could be worse, could be worse. So I have to be happy because I have to think of all these things that are worse than what I'm going through now. And our true self is not going to lie or manipulate the perspective. It is what it is. That was my, I guess, my biggest thought of what it was before yoga, what healthy was.
That was so well stated. I would love to be you when I grow up. The introspection is I mean, I could not, I was just listening to you going, what she said. It's true. It doesn't mean we're feeling sorry for ourselves. It means we are in the present moment as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're taught that, oh, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Could be worse.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm feeling this right now. I'm not asking for somebody to fix me. I'm feeling this. And if I refuse to feel it, then it's coming back. And that's where the beauty of yoga is.
Would you say that that's how your perspective changed? That's like the second part. It's like, how did your perspective, and we've touched on it a bit, change once you started actually practicing yoga? What did you think, healthy was? And now what do you think healthy is now that you've practiced yoga?
The misconception of you have to be happy all the time, it just shifted with just be true to yourself when working through any situation. For me personally, it was working through a lot of fear, a lot of trauma, a lot of self-love issues that I've had, that I'm still working through. If someone makes you uncomfortable, if someone has wronged you or continues to wrong you or manipulate, even if it's your disbelief in yourself is causing yourself that struggle, it's you have to address it, and you don't have to laugh it off or make a joke about it. You respond to it in a way that's true to you, because if you don't, you're giving permission, to the wrong, and you are hurting yourself in truth. And when you're not genuine, you therefore cannot be genuine to others, which therefore they cannot be genuine with you. And it's a ripple effect, and then you end up in a space where there's just a level of discomfort and untruth and disbelief and misperceptions, um and I think working through yoga and accepting the fact that I was pissed off about a lot of stuff that I pretended to be happy and okay with, that was the biggest shift. And since then, there's so many things, so many circles that I orbited that have either shifted or fluctuated in a way that I feel more comfortable walking through those spaces. And I can feel comfortable, not, whether it's a personal setting or a professional setting, I feel that it's my duty to be true to myself. Otherwise, I'm the one that's going to be up late at night thinking, I should have, why didn't I? Like, I felt that and I didn't. And it's just, no more. And you feel that in, in Warrior 3, or, Half Moon, or your Warrior 2s, and even your Warrior, like, you feel it through your practice when you're not true to yourself, when you've done a wrong to your true self. It's, you can't get that dristy, you can't feel your body out, because for me, it's like my body feels, it feels forsaken, it feels like it's been wronged.
With me, it's as I get older and older, it's you go from belief to knowing. Example, I believed that being a mom would be a challenge. By God, now I know. So there's the transition from believing to knowing can be huge after giving up because the bag of rocks was too hard to carry. The achieve. Just be in the pose. It took some injuries. I guess if I had to sum it up, it's everything all the time is this too shall pass for the good of the bad. So live in every moment, not trying to hold on to, working really, really diligently to let go of the things that don't serve you, but not clutching too much either to the things that are just so delightful. Because when you clutch onto anything in the past, or you're too worried or too excited about anything in the future, you leave the present behind, which is the only thing that's actually real. Being real in the pose, okay, pyramid doesn't feel good because my hamstrings are too tight. Okay, well, breathe into them and maybe they'll loosen up. Just be in the pose and not on everybody else's mat or at Kroger in an hour, or when your mom didn't buy you those red tennis shoes when you were 8. Whatever it is that comes up, just breathe through it and try to stay present.
That everything that does come up, serves a purpose.
Everything's a teacher if you're willing to listen.
I think we all, to be honest, I mean, those are all different perspectives, but I think to me, I really kind of see the core or the seed is step into your true self, is connecting with yourself and allowing yourself to be mad, upset, or stop achieving, or admit I'm an achiever. I'm gonna do this whatever it takes. I'm gonna, tear my hamstrings, do whatever, break my legs, break my I mean, that's, something you accepted, and you finally forgive yourself for that. You let yourself be yourself, whether you're mad, aggressive, upset, crying, asking for help, anything. You let yourself do whatever you need to, whatever you really need in this moment. And I always, Bethany, I like repeating. I think I repeat this phrase every time we meet. Those words, that phrase from you was profound for me, and it played a big role in my recovery and everything. So when you said, if you feel something, it's not like you're making something up. That's like, regardless to what others think, regardless to how others take the same experience, if you feel this way, it is true, it is real to you. That's your experience and your reaction to this, your feelings. And when I tried the therapy a few years ago before yoga, and I asked her, how do you know I'm not making stuff up? How do you know? How can you, I'm very, trust issues and very suspicious about, so I was checking, like, how does she know that I'm not making up, telling about my feelings and emotions? Because I had no idea what feelings and emotions, I couldn't even name them. But she said, I'll figure out, don't worry. And then I didn't trust that, of course. The answer did not satisfy me. So I thought I can trick her like I'm tricking myself, lying to myself, maybe making up the feelings, because it's probably not that bad. Like Demelina said, it can be worse. So, and then, those words that you said, it is true, it's real. And then second time I went into therapy, I was saying something, and then I said, oh yeah, I know, if I feel this, it is true. That's what's going on, because it's me who's feeling that. I had to learn how to trust myself, and then let go of any expectations, my expectations from myself. And then just really, for me, it's a lot of forgiveness. It's a lot of forgiveness for me try to work on the issues behind that are bothering me, and I'm like dishing it out on, so that's, I mean, it, to me, it's connecting to myself, really, like, to the true self.
So this is, I'm going to segue here because the next question was, what role does svadhyaya, which is self-study, play in your ability to make changes? And so you're kind of touching on that, where you learn in yoga that if you start connecting with who you really are and you study yourself, then you can start making some of these changes. And I want to touch on something else that I'm sort of hearing everyone say, and I want to just bring this to the surface. Okay. We have all been conditioned to behave in certain ways and to believe things about ourselves that are not necessarily true.
Mm.
And we're very accepting of these untruths. And so I want to kind of touch on that because it really plays a big role in how do we, break these unhealthy habits and patterns. A lot of times the habits and the patterns that you go through are things that were either reactions to things that you didn't like that happened, or they were actually conditioned behaviors and patterns that you were taught. Even if you weren't, verbally taught, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, you were shown through people's behavior and their own patterns that was the way that you should behave. And we as, human beings, and many creatures do this, they actually mirror those who they were raised by.
Mm.
And so I really need to put this out there that a lot of times the things that we do, from the things that we think to the things that we say to the behaviors and patterns that, are in our everyday, or sometimes it's something that only happens, let's say, 3 times a year or in a particular circumstance. These are not necessarily intrinsic to our authentic selves. So you're right, Victoria, to forgive yourself for these things, because a lot of the time they're not even actually your things. It's not that you're not doing them. You are. You have to take responsibility for it. But really getting down to the source, the core of where did this actually come from? And is it actually mine? Because you want to talk about breaking habits and patterns. If you recognize that something's not even yours, you didn't even think that on your own, you would have never done that had you not been shown or told, then it's actually quite easy to let go because it's not yours. You didn't come up with it.
Absolutely. I've done a lot of work on that. I think the first step is acknowledging and really seeing that it's not yours. It's really seeing, especially when it's image of you that was created by someone, the loved ones, especially the, really close people like your parents, and we're not perfect. It's not like, if your mom did something wrong, she's a total monster or something. No, but a lot of things we don't know. We can't know everything, right? And with like different generations, different like upbringing, different schools. So it takes a lot of, I think, it took me a lot of years, many, many years, to finally see that it's not me. It's something I've been told many, many years. And it's without even thinking, I think, because in the family, it's like you create an image of everyone and it's, oh, she's like that. Oh, again, there we go again. Oh, because she's like that. Because she's, she took it after her aunt, and the aunt was really like bad personality, really bad. So I can say, and then you really need to look at it like, okay, so these are all again layers that, someone, those clothes someone put on you. You really need to kind of dig, through that and unlayer. And you're like, okay, that's not me. Yes, I do react this way. Yes, because I have a reason, or that's, me but it doesn't mean that I'm this bad person or something, or, I can't react in this way because it makes me a bad person. No, it's just,
I bet if I were to ask you, and you don't need to disclose what the role is, but I bet if I were to just pose this question, what is your role in your family, your family that you were born into? What is your role? What is your label? Who are you in that family? And I bet everybody knows right away. I'm the blah
Yeah.
blah one.
Yeah.
I'm a such and such one.
yeah,
I'm a good girl.
Yeah, I'm a well, bad personality, like very, fiery, very
Difficult.
kind of
Difficult.
difficult, very difficult, very, strong reactions, very independent, very opinionated, very, now I can tell strong personality, kind of trying to stand up, for the point I'm having. And then also, I think a lot of that comes from, just rebelling because someone put someone put this kind of label on you.
Exactly.
And you're like, you know what I mean? You want to kind of rebel and you want to make it even worse.
And let me ask also this. So, once you start studying yourself and really getting to know yourself, do you realize that there's a lot of time that's been spent where you've been doing a lot of things to overcome this label that was put on you?
A lot of energy.
Just like you were talking about earlier, chasing health, we kind of chase this, process of I'm gonna today's the day that I'm gonna prove that I'm not this, or I am that, whatever it is that the image you've now created for yourself based off of the image that was created for you. Now you've created some sort of alter image that that's what you're gonna prove. And
and you can never prove, because so you become that person again because you need a proof or approval from someone who's been calling you this for all these years, and that person does not see the changes. You're doing your best, you're a different person, you come back home and guess what, your parents or your mom is telling you exactly the same words. You react in this way and she's like, oh, there we go. There is a proof. You are that. You can never, unless you believe you are not that, you will never find that approval or proof from others who labeled you that. You don't have to. It's all like external. It's not your problem. It's not, you can't control that. You control only what's in you. That's it.
It's almost like that self-fulfilling prophecy, where what you dedicate your energy to, it's like that's your focus. That's it right there. And if you're trying to prove someone wrong, so for example, for me growing up, it was such a bad attitude all the time. Such a bad attitude. And um and so there, hence my perspective of healthy, good person is happy all the time. And so you just kind of, forsake yourself. And so when they do get that validation, you're like, shoot, I've been focusing on not getting mad at anything. I was supposed to laugh. I was supposed to pretend, and it didn't work.
Yeah, similarly, this was the question that I felt like not most strongly about, but I think that I was able to understand the most. In that self-study, we're talking about making these changes. It actually, for me, encouraged me to want to change less. That I think that there are so many things about me that people are saying, you shouldn't be like this. Things that I'm self-conscious about, where I'm like, I've really got to change this. And when I realized, like, that's who I am. Like, an example I can think of, and it might sound like a silly example, but I am generally like a scared person. So like being around, like, the example I give is around fireworks. I don't love them. They're loud. I get that they're pretty, but society is like, they're great. Go out, shoot them off. And like on the 4th of July, I'm like, this is just not my thing. I need to stop fighting it. Like, it's not that I'm a bad person. It's not that I'm harming the other people around me, it's like, it's just not who I am. I need to stop fighting it. And similarly with like, I have a fear, again, these sound kind of silly, but like of lightning. So I was working in the yard and a storm, we have a ton of afternoon pop-up thunderstorms here in Atlanta. And I hear it thundering and I'm like, no, don't do that. You're not going to get struck by lightning. It's going to be fine. Don't be a wuss. Just finish laying the mulch, like, and then part of me is like, if it's bothering you, go inside. There's no harm in going inside. You'll finish mulching when it's done raining. And so I feel like I am aware of myself and that's who I am. And so I have to, I'm, and when I realize that, I'm able to stop fighting against what I think I should be and probably what others think I should be. So the self-study for me has been like a great, I guess, exercise in acceptance.
Realizing that how you are is how you are. And so, denying this and fighting against it is really very unhealthy for you. It makes you uncomfortable. What is the point of, proving that you can stay out in the yard when there is thunder and lightning or even, the potential of it and you feel uncomfortable? So you don't prove anything to anybody by staying out there. You just torture yourself.
And one of the things that Demelina said earlier is around when you are fighting that, you're not genuine to yourself. And so you can't be genuine to others. So in the fireworks example, I was so rattled and uncomfortable the whole rest of the night that I was like trying to be more myself and couldn't because I was so, I won't say afraid, but I was like trying to play it cool. Like, oh yeah, I really love being 10 feet from where you're shooting off fireworks. When in reality, I was like, I just want to go in the house. This is not my thing. So I think there's even those ripple effects of like, trauma, I think is probably a strong word, but that moment of really fighting against the universe of like who I am had like ripple effects through the rest of the night of like being, I guess, like internally embarrassed that I'm not able to be who people think that I probably am or probably should be.
Well, the reality of that also is that there is a physiological reason why you are not able to, get back into your zone where you feel comfortable and good. And once you go into fight or flight, you have to decompress from it. And so, what you'll notice a lot of animals do is that they shake it off. They actually shake. And human beings actually can do this also, but we're taught, not to. And so what it does is it essentially gets stuck, that response that you would shake it off, gets stuck in your body. And then it takes like 30 minutes minimum for you to actually calm down. And if it keeps getting reignited with pressure or stress, then you can stay in that state for like a really long time.
Mm.
Have you guys experienced that type of a thing? So it's like once you get, triggered, then you can't calm down right away. You need like 30 minutes to literally calm down. And then, if something happens in that 30 minutes, then it'll
Yeah.
just keep going.
They block or you have that tension, internal tension, physical tension. So you're like really completely like paralyzed or something. Then you go into that state, like then you even have the internal kind of shivering or something, but you can't let it out. It's like all like trapped in there.
As a young person, if you're in a home where there's a trauma bond, then you're in fight or flight for years.
Oh, yes.
It's yeah.
And then what happens is you have, a freeze response. And then you go into these patterns of freezing or being like hyper vigilant. So like Demelina was talking about like the happiness, she's going to be like super like positive and happy and she's going to go after it. And then Victoria's talking about, like running and achieving, and Elaine, you're talking about achieving, and, Lydia, you're talking about like, I can overcome this, I don't want, it's almost like I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be like the party pooper. I don't want to be the person who, and it's like, don't look at me, especially too, when you're in like not a great state of mind, and body with this stress. And so, we really need to be comfortable. And then it's like, you'll hear phrases like, well, life's hard, life's uncomfortable, get used to it. And these are very abusive attitudes. And half the time, the people saying them, back to what I was saying before, is that they were taught that by somebody else. It's not even them talking. It's just some catchphrase or way of being that was, beaten into their head. They think that they have to act like that.
Yeah.
That's the great thing that I've seen as I've gotten older, is that with the generations, it's more acceptable to break these patterns and to talk about these things and say, look, I feel this right now. Well-meaning people can teach you some horrible things, because that's what they were taught, and that's the way it is. Life's hard. It's life's hard, and then you die. No, that's not true. And it's, I think, certainly in the yoga community, these conversations are much more acceptable and much more healthy. But I think, or at least what I'm seeing, is overall nice thing with, that's one of the great things about social media, is that, the sharing of of information, is seems to be a growing trend of breaking these patterns, questioning the things that you've been taught. There was a time when you didn't question what your parents taught you, but that was law. Well, no, that's wrong.
I think these past couple years have been traumatic for a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons. But the one thing that kind of shows true to a lot of people is the ones that do svadhyaya, the ones that do the self-study throughout these couple years in my perspective, are the ones who have persevered through it. Not that it's been perfect, not that it's been great or fun for anyone, but coming out on the other side with a better perspective on change, on interactions with others as the circumstances change, as you may or may not have literally had fear and anxiety with being in spaces with others, as you're going grocery shopping, as you're going to the doctor, or anything. And I think one of the most harmful phrases that I've heard several times over is, well, everyone has had a rough 12 to 16 months, so almost like a, why do you think that your stress is more important, or anything like that, when it comes to mental health, and trying to take a step back, as Elaine said, and I was talking about earlier. Things have gotten crazy, professionally. Things have gotten so busy, and I think that the bandwidth that people previously had, not that it's shortened, but I think that we've had so much time, whether we want it to or not, to develop that self-study, because we literally have had, a majority of us have had to isolate at some point in time and gain a perspective of, okay, if I'm not muting my thoughts with shows or exercise or radio or what have you, guess what I'm stuck with? Like, this is me. So
What's going on in there?
Yeah.
Many people meeting themselves for the first time in this isolation situation that we've been in. And there's obviously a lot of things have gone not well. I think a lot of things were not going well, and there was just a lot of ways to avoid it, facing it before. I think a lot of things got highlighted in these circumstances for many people. I'm very, very grateful that I, first of all, had all of you, but also know yoga to the degree that I do. I'm sure that we share that, because I had to rely on it more than I ever have before, for a number of reasons. Navigating all of this has been very, very challenging and incredibly enlightening. And people really have a lot of capability when they're put under pressure. And so I have definitely seen that with our group, and I'm seeing that with a lot of different things. We saw that with all of the. I mean, look at what the grocery stores did, and look at what I mean. It's pretty remarkable, and all of the workers in the hospitals and on. I mean, you want to talk about fear. I mean, when your livelihood is compromised by the possibility of death, this starts to get not good, to say the least. And all of the people who lost their livelihood. And we're still in the process of watching all of this fall out as we move forward. I'm going to move on to this next question. How do you practice forgiveness toward yourself when you notice that you are not happy with your behavior or you've fallen into a thinking trap?
I try to check in at the end of the day. I spend an hour in the morning when I get up. I try not to not speak, to not engage in anything. No social media, no phone, no TV, no radio. The first hour of the day is to just be, and then I decide, what behaviors maybe from the day before I will attempt to not engage in that day, whether it be making self-deprecating jokes or judgment or something like that. And then at the end of the day, I go through my behavior and pick what I did well first, and then what needs to be changed, and put your head down on the pillow and be glad that you have a new day tomorrow, God willing, to make things to make me a better me. Well, that's judgmental of myself. To live more in the moment and be more self-observant more often.
Right, and I love that you corrected what you said, because you're not, talking to yourself in a way that was, supportive. And we notice this. Like, that's what's wonderful, is like, it's, we say something and then we realize that's not exactly what I wanted to say. And you know what? There's actually time for me to think about that, to let myself feel that, and to adjust it the way that I need to, so that it's actually something that works for me. I could not believe how much time and energy and patience I had to actually develop. I never thought I had time. I was completely impatient, and I know why. I know where that comes from. Everything growing up for me was always rush, rush, rush. You got one sort of chance to get whatever it was that was going to happen, especially if it was something positive. And then if that didn't work out, or you didn't show up exactly on time, or somebody changed their mind at the last moment, or somebody decided that they were going to throw a drunk, and then it wasn't going to work out for you. Just the little things. These are the types of things. What self-study has done for me is made me realize I do have time. I can reflect. I want to treat myself well. And I loved when you just said the thing when you lay your head down on the pillow at night, because I cannot express to you the amount of torment that I would put myself through because of everything that had happened during the course of the day. When I would go to bed, it was worse than being awake. Those moments before you just fall asleep because you're just exhausted, just total, like, thinking about everything that I did wrong, how I was going to possibly figure out how to overcome it. All of these things would just run through my mind, and I would just be so devastated. I thought it was my fault. I thought that everything that was going wrong, not in an egocentric kind of way, all of these things are happening, nothing's working out. I'm trying really hard, and it's not happening, right? And so, and I'm upset, and I'm not comfortable, and I'm finally in bed, and I'm a wreck. And I wouldn't sleep well. I would just crash. And then I don't know if any of you ever had this, but when you've gone through a lot of trauma, physically and emotionally, and every trauma, you will wake up really, really startled. So you have night terrors. And so that would happen. when you said that, Elaine, that you put you go through your things and you're like, okay, this happened and that happened. You kind of like recalibrating from your day. And then now I say, I'm good. I like myself. I'm going to sleep. And I just will not go through those patterns of ripping myself apart, And I know that was like a lot.
No, that was great.
You don't know where to start, right? And you're terrified by the amount of all this, and you're like, I will never ever be able to figure this all out and kind of, dig through and sort it out because it's all my fault and I won't be able to fix it. I'm not able. I'm not
Not
capable.
only was I feeling like I'm not able, I'm thinking I'm going to get in so much freaking trouble
Mm-hmm.
if I actually decide I'm going to take care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not, what I'm supposed to be doing. I'd been given my orders of what I was supposed to be doing, and living my own life was not part of that equation.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where when I first started, doing yoga and figuring out like, hey, I actually have a lot of things that I want to do, I was so guilt stricken that I kept it all inside for a very, very long time. And then I started to teach. And I will tell you, like, I don't know if you know this, but for many years when I would teach, I'd be very comfortable in that room and I'd be saying all the stuff that I wanted to say. And I would get in the car and be like, oh, I'm going to get in huge trouble. I'm a grown woman, by the way, when this is happening. I am going to get in big trouble for speaking my mind.
For being true. Yeah. For being true self.
Not only just from, my immediate family where growing up, but that's predominantly where that came from. But societally, I am a woman. I'm talking like this. I'm saying what I want to say. I'm speaking my mind. I'm telling people things that I know are true.
The programming. Yeah. The programming. I mean, it's strong, right? It's in us. It's just ingrown. But I also, I wanted to say I finally formulated it kind of in my head. So breaking unhealthy habits, for me, it's literally so I can compare. So before, when I had the moments of different kind of moments, like bad moments, times in my life, I would run from myself and from what I had to deal with, and I just couldn't. So I would run. So with yoga, when I started practicing yoga, especially in the past, I would say 2-3 years, I practice yoga, but I go inward. So instead of going outside and run from myself, I haven't even noticed how gradually I changed to still moving, but more just to calm myself down, just to have that familiar something that's good for me, for my mind and my body. And I know that's that kind of movement, the asanas, it makes me whole, it yokes me, and I go inward. I finally, after a series of movement on my mat, and I feel safe on the mat too. So that's also kind of, that mental kind of those borders. Like that's my mat, and it's, it's me. So I'm on this little piece. I don't have to go outside. I'm still moving. I don't feel trapped, kind of. I need to move, but I go inward. Finally, I completely internal.
Absolutely. You will also, this will occur over time. You will start running towards your mind. You will actually make decisions to go towards meditation. But it takes a really, really long time to.
I already have it sometimes. I need that something. Yes, I need the connection.
That's a beautiful thing. And you want the stillness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Only recently, and I was amazed. I still cannot believe it, so I don't really say it out loud. But few times I couldn't even believe myself. A few times I had an urge to meditate. I think just to connect more and just to kind of, just because I'm now I find the power and everything in me. I know it's there. So sometimes I have that urge to connect and to calm myself, like to say, it's fine. You have yourself. Like I have myself. So I need to go in and tap into that. And then I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's me. And
Look
I
at
have
the difference of what you just said. When things are, not going well or whatever, just day to day, somebody who's not practicing yoga, who's not been exposed to this type of information, you're always looking in the external world to get something that's going to calm them down or satisfy them or achieve something that other people will notice. And you're talking about, I know exactly where I need to go. I need to go inward. I need to go be with myself because I know that that's where, you've become a resource and an asset to yourself.
and yes, a source of power that you can rely on. You can just kind of, I have myself. I have myself,
Exactly.
to support myself.
For the good or the bad, there's that phrase, wherever you go, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that's a good thing and a resource that you finally, the difference between believing and knowing that you have everything that you need. It doesn't always have to be unicorns, butterflies, and rainbows, and you have within you what you need to move through that time.
Also, letting go of the illusion that you had anything else. Like the realization of, yeah, that's all I've ever had. If you just be grateful that like somebody fed you and clothed you or whatever, right? Thank God. And then beyond that, if you got extra, if you got love and you got all that great stuff, that's awesome. That's ideal. This is gonna, my son is not gonna have to go through the torture that I did in my brain. But ultimately, everyone only has themselves. But the good news is we learn and know in yoga is we're all interconnected. So you're never alone.
And the source is infinite. It's endless. It's very powerful just because you are interconnected, just because you are everything and everything is you. And that's where I think you have that confidence. Like it's not just you. You are part of something very big and powerful and something that everyone is connected to. And you are the same. You're not gonna, die. You'll survive. You'll just be. You just be. In worst case, you be. You don't achieve. You don't fight. You don't struggle. You just be here.
You start to realize the value in that when you realize that sometimes just being is you don't have to go make a mess.
More.
It will be better to just be still and to let yourself process. We can't be critical of ourselves all the time, especially when we're trying to break unhealthy habits, when we are recognizing patterns. We don't know the answer right away of what to do. Going into some stillness is really important. Lydia, I loved actually, if you don't mind, I want to mention when you said, your wedding got delayed. And then you said, okay, but a lot of really good stuff came out of that because you had this time.
Yes, you're exactly right.
Because sometimes it's like it wasn't what you planned, but then you had this time to get some new perspective. Clearly, it would have been fine to go when it was supposed to. But when things don't go that way, then you have opportunity. And I think that that's a huge aspect of when you find yourself in some sort of a thinking trap. This has to be this way. This was supposed to be like this. Why did they do that? These are signals. Hey, I'm going to have to adjust, and I'm not going to be able to just go into this same pattern of behavior. It's not going to get me anywhere. I have to look at this as an opportunity for something else. What is the universe trying to say?
And I also think one thing that was helpful to me, like throughout my yoga practice, when we did that, and again, this is in the grand scheme of things, not a huge problem. Like we were doing just fine, but I had to allow myself to be like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to still have a fancy wedding 9 months down the road and still be really sad and really disappointed, today. And, a lot of people are like, well, it's okay. It's going to be even better. And they were right. It was, but there's still that range of emotion of like, this is still really disappointing for me, even if on the grand scheme of all of our problems, it's really not that big of a problem.
It's a pretty big deal. I mean, in perspective, right? I mean, I don't think anybody would look at a wedding as something that's not super significant in your life. But I think because it's a happy occasion and it's a voluntary occasion and it's something that you're opting to do and you're planning it when you are, like, it doesn't have to be on, that day or whatever. If somebody needed open heart surgery, there would be a sense of urgency. There would be, a sense of like, this might not go well, like things like that. Those are real. So when you say, I know it's not that big of a deal, it's your life. It's an aspect of your life. And this is something that's very important. We think that some things are more important than other things. And it's like if you were in your pose and you were like, okay, I'm in warrior 2. And it's much more important that I bend my knee at 90 degrees than it is to turn let's say you're bending the right knee, to bring the left side of my ribs back. And we would maybe even not breathe efficiently. We're like, yeah, but my knee is bent at 90 degrees. This is such human nature. Why did we decide that the bend in the knee at 90 degrees is somehow more important than the ribs coming back, is somehow more important than breathing efficiently? How did we separate our body and our actions into these, and I'm just using 3 things, these 3 parts, and say that one is more relevant than the other? It's all part of the same pose. Your marriage is a part of your life. It matters. Not more or less. It's just, that's a marriage. This is open heart surgery. This is walking the dogs. Like, but they're all still part of the same thing. So why would one thing be more relevant than another?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. In your example of in Warrior 2, when I'm teaching it, the first thing I say is, left knee has been at 90, right leg is straight and strong, but the pose is not whole until it all is done correctly, right? And there's no, I won't say there's no perfect pose, but there is no perfect pose, right? Like it's same thing in our life. Like our knee is never going to be bent right at 90 degrees, right? Like it's going to be really close, but I think you made a great point of like, our life is like these poses. There are these things that we think as long as this is right, then everything else is right. And that's really not the case.
Right. It all matters. It all matters, right? Everything works together. So you just look at each thing. And the reason why we'll say bend the knee at 90 degrees is because we can only say one thing at a time. Interestingly, though, the body can do several things at the same time. The instruction is actually the thing that hamstrings us. Having to verbalize what to do in yoga is probably the worst aspect of it, because we can only say one thing at a time. This is why when we practice, and the same thing happens when we're trying to break these, and I'm going to kind of reel it into when we're breaking habits and patterns. With practice, what happens is we train, for example, our mind, hey, you're doing that thing again. And the reason you know it is because you practiced, and maybe you even put something in there to hold a place. Like you start going into a pattern of behavior and you came up with a word that you say to yourself, right? Oh, that's not benefiting you. Or what's up with that? Or, oh, is this okay because it's Tuesday? Maybe you get even kind of humorous with yourself or whatever. But
Absolutely.
and when we practice, we go into Warrior 2. And because we've been given separately all the instructions, but we've done it 5,000 times, our muscles actually start remembering, oh, we're doing this. And then you don't mess it up anymore. And no, it's never perfect, but everything starts working together. And in yoga, the term is called samapatti, when everything falls together. and it's a little more of an advanced concept, but this starts happening in your poses. Does anyone have anything else that they wanted to say before we go?
I just want to say one thing,
Yeah.
because I think that this is such a beautiful concept to discuss, because a lot of what we do day to day is very habitual.
Mhm.
What we eat, where we go, how we do the things that we do. And when you take a moment, as Elaine said, to not jump on social media immediately, not put those filters on, just be with yourself, be with your true self, your true thoughts, and really align with you and where you want to go and where you want to be and who you want to be. Well, be. um, I think naturally all those filters, all those um, habits that were not yours to begin with begin to just break. They just break themselves. That negative self-talk, that let me check myself in the mirror for the fifth time before I go out there, because I'm not thinking about me. I'm not thinking about my comfort. If I like this outfit, if I feel good, I'm thinking about how will this person, all these things see me now. So I think that I think that realizing the bad habits that we've created, realizing any habits that don't serve us in a way that will align us with our true self, we we tend to notice, because the energy doesn't feel the same.
Mhm.
It's not natural. We have to jump over so many hurdles to do something that's not us. And I love that during training we learned that when something is true to you, when it's natural to you, it's effortless, absolutely effortless. Not that it doesn't take effort, but it is effortless ease. Just how it happens. So I just think this is a beautiful concept, and I really hope that people continue to talk about this and make the changes that they need to be their true selves.
Right, because it's the beginning of getting to know who you actually are, putting yourself first. And it takes a while to have who you are and what you want and need be your first thoughts,
Mm.
which sounds ridiculous, but is true. And I think many people don't even notice that. It never even occurred to them that the thoughts that they're having are not for them, but rather totally spread out and not for them. You're absolutely right. All right, I'm going to end the recording, but I want to thank everybody